All right, let's get right into it. The United States has just dropped a bombshell by sanctioning Iran's Chabahar Port. Now, this might sound like just another headline about Iran, but trust me, it's a massive strategic blow to India. We're talking about years of investment and careful geopolitical planning potentially going right down the drain. So, what exactly happened? Why does this one port matter so much? And where does India even go from here? Let's break it all down. To really get what's going on here, you've got to look at the bigger picture, the relationship between India and the US under the Trump administration. It's been, well, complicated. It's a real mix of friendly gestures on one hand, and then these sudden, seriously disruptive policy moves on the other. One day it's all warm phone calls, the next, a decision that completely undermines one of your key partners. There's a phrase from a famous Bollywood movie that just hits the nail on the head. Kabhi khushi kabhi gham. It means sometimes happiness, sometimes sadness. And that really is the perfect way to describe this. This sanction came right after a series of really positive exchanges, which just makes the whole thing feel that much more abrupt, and frankly, a lot harder for India to deal with. So let's get to the bottom line. What just happened? The United States officially yanked the waiver that was protecting Iran's Chabahar port. What that means is any country, any company that's involved with that port now faces the threat of US sanctions. It's a move that's designed to completely isolate this critical piece of infrastructure. And if you want to see just how sudden this was, just look at this timeline. Back in 2018, the US actually gave India the green light for this project. Why? They saw it as crucial for helping rebuild Afghanistan. Fast forward to this year, 2024, and India goes all in, signing a 10-year contract to operate the port. And then, bam! Just a few months after that huge commitment, the rug is completely pulled out from under them. This isn't a small change. It's a total reversal of years of policy. So why all the fuss over one port? Well, because for India, Chabahar isn't just any port. It's been called Iran's Golden Gate. And for India, it was supposed to be its own golden gateway into a whole new region of influence and trade. Okay, before we dive deeper into the strategy, let's make sure we're on the same page. The source material has this brilliant symbol analogy. A port is basically a bus station for ships. Think about it. The water near a normal coastline is way too shallow for those massive cargo ships. So you have to build these special deep harbors. This lets the giants of the sea pull right up, unload tons and tons of goods onto trains and trucks, and get the whole supply chain moving. Chabahar is exactly that kind of critical hub. And this is where you start to see why Chabahar was such a game changer for India. It was a master key that unlocked solutions to so many problems at once. First off, it gave India a trade route to Afghanistan and all of Central Asia that completely bypassed its rival Pakistan. It was also the absolute cornerstone of an even bigger ambition, the North-South Transport Corridor, a route designed to connect India all the way to Russia. And maybe most important of all, it was India's direct answer to China's growing power just down the coast. This right here is the heart of the great game being played out in the region. You've got India's project in Chabahar, and then just 175 kilometers away, you have China's massive investment in Pakistan's Gwadar port. These two ports are locked in direct strategic competition. For India, having that foothold in Chabahar was absolutely essential to push back against China's expanding influence. Which brings us to the million-dollar question. Why on earth would the US sabotage a key strategic project of its partner, India? Well, the answer seems to be a mix of two big policy changes and a broader strategy that the US calls its maximum pressure policy. So the thinking in Washington really comes down to two main things. First, the original justification for the waiver was to help the US-backed government in Afghanistan. Well, since the Taliban took over, the US sees that reason as totally irrelevant now. And second, the US started to worry that India was using the port not just for Afghanistan, but to seriously ramp up its trade with Russia, potentially undermining Western sanctions. And the official line from Washington goes even deeper. The US claims that any money the port generates helps fund groups that it considers hostile, like Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis. So, from their perspective, shutting down Chabahar is part of a much bigger plan to cut off funding and apply maximum economic pressure on Iran. But whatever the reasoning is in Washington, for India, the consequences are immediate and they are severe. We're talking about a massive ripple effect that's hitting India on multiple strategic fronts at once. Just think back to that contract we mentioned. 10 years. This wasn't some short-term experiment for India.
It was a massive, long-term commitment, a central piece of its foreign policy for the next decade. And now, it's in serious trouble. And we're not just talking about plans on paper here. This is real money. India has already poured over 400 crore rupees, that's about 4 billion rupees, into developing this port between 2016 and 2024. That is a huge financial investment that is now hanging in the balance. The strategic losses are just staggering. That huge vision for a trade route to Russia, it's stalled. The ability to counter China's port next door, seriously weakened. This also does real damage to the trust between India and the US as partners. Even humanitarian aid gets hit. India sent 20,000 tons of wheat to Afghanistan through Chabahar just last year. Now, that lifeline is cut. And of course, in this big geopolitical chess game, India's setback is a direct win for its rival, Pakistan. So all of this leaves India stuck at a major crossroads. Its number one strategy has just been blocked. What in the world are the options left on the table? At the end of the day, it looks like there are two main paths forward. Option one is to negotiate. India can lobby Washington like crazy, trying to get a new waiver. But the risk there is that your entire foreign policy becomes dependent on the unpredictable politics of the US. Option two is to pivot. Just cut your losses and focus on other projects, like the new India-Middle East-Europe corridor. The big downside there? You're basically giving up critical strategic territory to your biggest rivals. And that leaves us with the final burning question. India is caught in this massive squeeze play between America's policies and its own rivalry with China. So what does it do? Does it fight to reopen its Golden Gate to Central Asia? Or will this huge setback force it to redraw its entire strategic map? The choice it makes is going to shape the geopolitics of the region for years to come.